You know how some people just don't know when to stop? Like they lose the job, walk out the door, and still try to show up like they run the place? That's exactly what Harry and Meghan just did on an international level. Nigeria didn't just close the door on their second visit, they slammed it shut. And they did it loud enough for the whole world to hear. This isn't just another messy headline. This is the moment the Sussex's whole brand took a hard left off a cliff. So let's set the stage. Back in 2024, Harry and Meghan showed up in Nigeria for what looked like a royal tour, only they're not royals anymore. They're private citizens with zero official backing from the British government. But that didn't stop them from rolling in with Netflix cameras, glam squads, multiple wardrobe changes, and more fanfare than some actual heads of state. And to top it all off, Meghan stood in front of a cheering crowd and declared that she was 43% Nigerian, thanks to a mail-in DNA test. At the time, some folks clapped, others, they cringed. But everyone remembered, and when word got out that they wanted to come back, the Nigerian government remembered too. Only this time, instead of laying out the red carpet, they handed them a polite but direct no thank you. Not from some junior staffer or PR flack. This came straight from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Official, cold, final. So what changed between the first visit and now? Honestly, nothing. And that's the problem. According to insiders, Nigerian officials felt the first trip was more about optics than impact. Instead of building relationships or launching meaningful initiatives, Harry and Meghan seemed more interested in collecting photo ops and making another PR splash. And after the dust settled, a lot of people saw right through it. See, Nigeria is not just some tourist backdrop you can parachute into for brand polish. It's Africa's biggest country, a cultural powerhouse, and a nation that's been navigating real global partnerships, not made for Netflix love fests. And when Meghan wrapped herself in Ankara prints and tribal symbolism, it didn't feel like tribute, it felt like branding, like cosplay, like she was selling a moment. What really hit a nerve, though, was the money. Nigerians started asking the hard questions. Who's paying for this? Who's handling the logistics? Why are tax dollars being used to provide motorcades, five-star suites, and security for a couple that doesn't even represent any government? The more details came out, the louder the criticism got. It wasn't just online hate, it was official backlash, private petitions, and public outcry from traditional leaders, journalists, and academics. And then came the final blow, the flat-out rejection of a second visit. To many Nigerians, it wasn't about race. It wasn't about royalty. It was about respect. Respect for their culture, their institutions, and their people. And the Sussexes, whether intentionally or not, came off like they were treating Nigeria as a prop, a stage for their comeback tour. And the audience, not impressed. It wasn't just Nigerians either. Behind closed doors, even British diplomats sighed in relief. According to leaked comments from former officials, the UK government had flagged Harry and Meghan as a diplomatic risk after the first trip. No protocol, no official coordination, and no accountability, just vibes. And when you're walking into a foreign country acting like a royal without the crown or the job, you're begging for trouble. And that's where we are now, a royal fantasy running out of runway. Nigeria said no, and the message echoed way beyond Africa. This wasn't just a political decision, it was a cultural clapback, a wake-up call. The Sussex image isn't just cracking, it's collapsing. The rejection hit harder than either of them expected. Meghan had already been lining up the next PR phase, Diaspora Dreams, a possible documentary, maybe even a new chapter in her next book. Everything hinged on Nigeria playing along. Instead, the country hit pause on the whole spectacle. It wasn't just a no to a visit, it was a no to being used. And that's where things really started to spiral. What followed wasn't a scandal, it was a collapse. One by one, the dominoes started to fall. First, it was Netflix. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team had been quietly pitching a glossy special about her Nigerian heritage, complete with slow-motion hugs, heartfelt voiceovers, and feel-good empowerment angles. But Netflix didn't bite. In fact, they backed away so fast you'd think they smelled fire. Executives raised red flags about liability, misrepresentation, and diplomatic backlash. One insider put it plainly: "This is not the kind of controversy we want on our books." And when Netflix says no, That's not just a door closing, it's the whole building locking down. They were the Sussexes' biggest content partner. Without that platform, their entire post-royal media strategy started to unravel. And with Nigeria's rejection still making global headlines, there was no saving the narrative. It wasn't a triumph, it was a takedown. Back in LA, things got awkward. Meghan and Harry were no longer the golden couple who broke free from the monarchy. They were drifting into a weird space. Too royal for regular celebrity, too rogue for diplomacy, and too controversial for brand deals. Publicists started quietly ghosting. Talent agencies began scrubbing their names from future project drafts. Even A-list circles like Beyoncé, Camp, Oprah's team, major fashion houses went silent. The Sussexes still had a platform, sure, but no one wanted to stand on it with them. What made it worse was that Meghan didn't pivot. She doubled down. More empowerment speeches, more curated photo ops, more I am brave moments in front of carefully selected crowds. But instead of landing, they just added fuel to the fire. Every new headline reminded people of the Nigerian fallout. Every statement about identity or culture came across as hollow. At some point, the charm flipped into cringe. And let's talk about the DNA test. That one decision announcing she was 43% Nigerian based on a spit sample became a meme, a punchline, and a case study in what not to do. Cultural experts called it performative, local scholars labeled it ancestral cosplay. One historian said it best, "You don't get to wrap yourself in identity only when it fits your image." It wasn't the celebration Meghan imagined. It was a takedown. Social media exploded with side eyes, think pieces, and brutally viral edits. The message was clear. You can't commercialize culture and expect applause. Meanwhile, Nigerian royals were furious. Many hadn't even been contacted during the original tour. They felt bypassed, disrespected, and used. Some accused Meghan and Harry of royal cherry-picking, meeting only with hand-picked safe elders while ignoring the actual power structures. Behind the scenes, several traditional leaders pushed the federal government to create new travel protocols to prevent self-appointed foreign figures from hijacking diplomatic spaces, and they weren't alone. Pan-African organizations started drafting guidelines. No more photo op diplomacy. No more Netflix nobility. If you're not sent by a government or tied to a real mission, you're a tourist. That sentiment gained traction across the continent. One policy analyst summed it up perfectly. We're done being backdrops for other people's branding. The backlash had transformed into a movement. Cultural sovereignty, media accountability, and public dignity all collided in this one messy moment. Harry and Meghan didn't just get rejected, they got exposed. And their global brand? It's no longer seen as inspiring, it's becoming a cautionary tale. Hollywood felt the shift first. The phones that once rang with project offers started going quiet. Meghan's team, who had banked on the Nigeria visit as a major content springboard, found themselves fielding silence instead of meetings. Production companies suddenly had scheduling conflicts, streamers gave vague responses, and big brands, they wanted no association with the rising tide of controversy. The Sussex name, once synonymous with royal rebellion and modern glamour, had morphed into something unpredictable, and in showbiz, unpredictability kills deals. The entertainment world runs on image. You can be messy, you can be polarizing, but you can't be uninsurable. And that's exactly what Meghan and Harry were quickly becoming. PR firms whispered about brand volatility. Executives called them too risky. One insider from a major media agency put it bluntly, "You don't invest in a couple who walk into countries like they still wear crowns and leave behind diplomatic fires." For Meghan, who built her post-place persona around being a strong, progressive figure for change, the rejection hit deeper than just headlines. It shattered the illusion that she could bounce from scandal to redemption indefinitely. The audience had stopped clapping. And worse, the people she claimed to represent were now pushing back the hardest. In Nigeria, a growing number of civic leaders began publicly rejecting what they saw as virtue signaling wrapped in designer fabric. One Lagos-based commentator said it flat out. She came to connect with her roots but ended up planting resentment. And while Meghan took the lion's share of the backlash, Harry didn't escape untouched. His name had weight, and for years that was enough. But now, even that weight was starting to feel like baggage. Royal observers, diplomats, and international press began questioning whether Harry understood the space he was moving in or if he was just tagging along. The whole image of him as a modern leader, a man forging his own path outside the palace, had started to wear thin, especially when it looked like that path was paved with soft-focus interviews, Netflix lighting, and very little substance. Behind the scenes, even their nonprofit Archewell was facing scrutiny. Promises made during their first Nigerian visit, community support, cultural outreach, long-term engagement hadn't materialized. Locals and critics alike started asking, where's the follow-through? And when the answer was mostly PR and polished footage, the disappointment turned into frustration. This wasn't just about two celebrities misjudging a moment. It became a symbol of a larger pattern, one that countries across the global south were no longer willing to tolerate. The era of parachute philanthropy and camera-first diplomacy was coming to an end. People didn't want visitors who saw their culture as a backdrop. They wanted respect, they wanted partnership, and they weren't afraid to say it. By the time industry analysts started updating their projections on the Sussex brand, the damage was done. What once looked like an unstoppable media juggernaut now resembled a glossy balloon losing air fast. The glamour, the exclusivity, the momentum, it was all slipping, and Nigeria, in standing its ground, had set a new tone. It wasn't just a diplomatic decision, it was a cultural reset, a way of saying your title doesn't travel here unless it comes with accountability. As for Meghan and Harry, the next move is unclear. The spotlight isn't going anywhere, but it's no longer flattering. It's harsh, unfiltered, and getting hotter by the day. The narrative they built so carefully of freedom, reinvention, and global goodwill is cracking. And this time, no amount of editing can fix it. The message has landed. The world isn't their stage anymore.